I'm of a similar mind that I was last time. I think Clinton's going to win. The polls historically in political science tighten before an election. So I'm interested to see the polls in about 2 weeks. And of course the polling, like the snap polling that happens after the debate tomorrow, especially if Trump's desperate. And I think he's going to be desperate. I think the debate tomorrow is going to be pretty crazy.
Do you think you think we've seen the last of it? Of the chaos of the
No,
accusations
because so there's no, definitely not. There's a few things that I've been talking to people recently, and people that are into this stuff like I am, and starting to draw some preliminary conclusions. And no one's gone to the ballot box yet. I think that there are definitely shy Trump voters. We went into that last time, and so I think that you can probably safely add 3 or 4 points to whatever Trump's going to poll at, and that's what he's actually going to get, because there are people that are afraid to admit that they're going to vote for him, and every Clinton voter is known, so there are no secret Clinton voters. Now, people can swing from independent or from Johnson or Jill Stein or something and vote for her or vote for him. I don't know what's going to happen, but I think it's pretty safe to assume that she's going to win. If she doesn't, the polling is so catastrophically wrong that we shouldn't even poll anymore. That's like we were talking about last time about the UK and Brexit and all those kinds of how those polls were wrong. Those polls were wrong by 4, 5, 6 points. These polls will be wrong by like 10 points. That means that the polling is basically just a guess at that point. Mm-hmm. So there's something to be concerned about there. With that said, what's becoming clear is that no one likes Hillary Clinton. And what I mean by that is that Hillary Clinton has this ceiling that's not even 50 points. Like, she's not even getting half of the American people to vote for her. Hillary Clinton is going to be president because of who she's running against. She would have lost almost any reasonable candidate. And that's becoming so clear. And I was talking about that with someone recently where I was like, we knew as conservatives that this moment was going to happen. And we just thought we would have a better champion than what we ended up having, a champion so terrible that I actually left the Republican Party over it. Because I can't possibly be with Trump.
Why'd you do this to us, Mitt Romney?
Mitt Romney could have came in, or just almost anyone else. So, I always challenge people, like, I like Hillary Clinton, she's not that bad. I'm like, name one thing she did as a senator. One thing. Yeah, like no one.
To be fair, I couldn't name one thing any senator's done.
Well, there's landmark legislation or things that people did. Like what did Hillary do other than carpet bag to my home state and use it toward a political gain? She did fucking nothing. So, like, that disturbs me. Like, for a lot of New York conservatives, and there are many of us, she is a disturbing figure. Even though New York's going to vote for Hillary Clinton, it's going to be New York City that's going to vote for her. Long Island is almost certainly going to go for Trump, and upstate obviously is going to go for Trump as well. The one thing that I feel like is missing, though, in this election is, and I think that this is important information, this is what I wanted to talk to you guys about, is a lack of empathy for the people that vote for Trump. Now, this is something that's actually starting to annoy me. In a major way. I'm not saying that I support Donald Trump, because I don't. I don't support a lot of the things that are coming out of his mouth. I think he's clearly xenophobic. I think he's clearly sexist. And I think he clearly has bigoted tendencies. I think that's obvious. But to parlay that on an entire group of people, tens of millions of people, is, I think, becoming a troubling thing. And I think it's becoming it's troubling me with the lack of empathy and sincere concern that we have for other people in this country. And I printed out 2 things. One of them, I actually watched a video and transcribed it from this morning because I was so touched by it and so moved by it that I was like, I need to share this with what someone said about Donald Trump supporters. But above and beyond that, before we get to that, I just feel like people need to learn how to separate the candidate from the people that support that candidate, and the issues from the people that might support some issues but not other issues. The example I use all the time, and I think it's a totally salient issue, it's the same exact thing, is so people are like, well, if you vote for Trump, then you must support the things he said about Mexicans, for instance. And I'm like, okay, if you voted for Barack Obama in 2008, you were against gay marriage. If you voted for Bill Clinton in 1996, you didn't even believe that gay people should be able to serve openly in the military. We can all play that game, right? We can all certainly play that game. But sometimes people, like a candidate for certain reasons or very specific reasons, mm-hmm. and they don't care about, or they don't pay attention to, or they're so desperate that they don't care about those other issues that trouble someone like me, who's in, frankly, a much more secure place financially, who's one of the coastal elites or whatever. I'm from New York. I was educated in Boston. I live in San Francisco. I do not have a glimpse into middle America, into the Rust Belt, into blue collar America, the way that a lot of Trump supporters do. And so I wanted to read this to you guys. I know some people get mad when I read things for a few minutes, but this is really important, and I want you guys to listen. There's 2 things here that I want you guys to hear. The first one is from Mike Barnacle. He's a writer for Boston. He's for the Boston Globe now. Liberal, unabashed liberal guy. He's on Morning Joe all the time, which is a show I really like. Was accused of plagiarism, I think, in the 90s actually, but he's a smart dude. And here's what he said about Trump supporters today on Morning Joe. Too many people in the media, our business, coastal elites, where a lot of people live or who are in our business, don't understand the loss that's taken place in this country over the last 20 or 25 years. Specifically, if you have a 20-year-old son today serving in Iraq or Afghanistan, that child was 5 years old when this war began. That's 15, 16 years ago. Then along comes the winter of 2008 and 2009 when another loss occurs that shakes the foundation of the culture of the country. People lose homes, they lose incomes, they lose jobs, they're unemployed, they lose their 401k, they lose their life savings. And what are they thinking along the course of these years? They're thinking this: they have no voice in government, that they are represented by a professional political class who just keep running for re-election and raising money to enhance their own futures and their own present status. But they don't talk about their lives, and what do they read, and what do they hear now lately in the last year? If they go to a Trump rally, they're not going to a Trump rally to listen to a guy who they sort of like what he says without paying attention to who he is. They hear and read in the papers that they're probably racist for going to the Trump rally, and that they take great offense to this, and they ought to take great offense. We don't understand their lives, and we don't cover their lives. And I thought that was a really interesting and totally salient thing about Trump supporters. We here at this table don't understand what it's like to live in a Rust Belt town in Ohio where the fucking coal factory or the coal mine is shut down and everything's fucked for all of them. Everything. You know, they live in the town. Town X in Ohio has a coal mine. The EPA rips the coal mine, doesn't allow the coal mine to exist anymore. The coal miners are out of jobs. The people that work at the convenience store are now out of jobs. The people that work at the gas station are out of jobs. All the service industries are out of jobs, and no one has any money, and they're all fucked. And all they want to hear is someone come in and blast the people that they feel like did it to them, and whether or not that they're right in that the Washington D.C. is corrupt and the liberal policies have done this to them. It's not neither here nor there. We have to understand more about where these people come from and why they're voting for this man and why they don't trust the political elite and why they don't trust politicians and Washington and all these things, because they fucked them, And that's one of the things where I feel like we don't understand that in San Francisco. We don't have that problem. We have one of the most bustling economies in the entire world in this city. I don't understand that where I come from in New York, on Long Island, in the shadow of the biggest city, one of the biggest cities and most profitable cities in the world. Or I went to school in Boston, which is a very affluent, collegiate place. But I tell you right now, in Gary, Indiana, they know that. In West Virginia, they hear it. And I feel like we have to have a little more empathy for these people than to say like they're racist and they're bigots and they're xenophobes. They're not. There are some of them that are. I can point out some fucking cartoon characters on the other side too. Greg and I walked through Sugati Park during the fucking height of Occupy Wall Street. That was as cartoonish as that came off of on TV, and I think we can both agree on that there. But I never walked around and said, those people are fucking stupid. Those people are fucking pieces of shit. I looked at it and I'm like, you're wrong. You have no idea what you're talking about. And maybe you can say that about Trump supporters. But to demonize this whole group of people after an election and then expect everyone to come back into the fold, what you're going to see after this election because of this kind of shit is a very divisive country where nothing gets done. Hillary Clinton's not going to get fucking shit done.
But I mean, that is the country, and that's what's been
me.
Politics is normal forever. I do have empathy for these people. I feel fucking sorry for them. I'm sorry that they are so disenfranchised that they can be duped this easily. And the Trump supporters I do see on my Facebook are the ones I feel the most sorry for. Family members who have been duped into this fucking bullshit that is the racist bullshit, that is the racist tirade, that is posting a fucking meme asking if President Obama is a Muslim and where his birth certificate is still to this day. Like, that's what I'm talking about. That's where it comes from. Sure, you're talking about like demonizing this whole thing. Of course, this is the problem. This is the problem when I see these fucking people talking out their ass about the fact of like, oh, I can't believe we're letting Muslims into this country when they did this. When you're talking about, well, look at any other fucking not the Unabomber, but any other mass murderer who's a Christian. I can suddenly demonize all Christians based on the actions of one bad person spoiling the bunch. And that's the problem, is that this is never cut and dry. But when you're screaming about how terrible Trump is and that he's a bigot and that if you're going to follow him into this, you're following somebody like Hitler and da-da-da-da. It's extreme. It's too far, of course, but it's trying to talk and trying to get through to these people that have gone so far around the bend that they think that this snake oil salesman is speaking to them, that Donald Trump knows shit about Gary, Indiana, that Donald Trump knows shit about being a blue-collar worker. As my father, this construction worker, this blue-collar guy in a union and all this other stuff. And I'm not at all, as you know, and as the listeners know, am I trying to claim that I understand what it's like to do that or be there or to be in Gary, Indiana, or be in a coal mine. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that I feel sorry for the people who have fallen for that line of bullshit, that have looked at Trump and see him come in and are so fucked. And don't get me wrong, this is what I've been saying for years, if you watch our shit throughout the years, of What I fucking hate about politics is that nothing gets done. Everyone is a grin fucker. Nobody is saying anything or making any real change here. And this is what I keep saying about what I like about this election is Bernie Sanders, is Donald Trump, not as people, not as platforms, but as things to come out and say from here on out, I really, 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 really do believe that it's going to be, all right, cool, I'm running for mayor, I'm running for Senate, I'm running for president from here on out, and I'm going to be a normal person, and I'm going to finally get back to the America and the politics you believe in, Colin, right? Because that's always been the thing with you. When I first met you and you were a Republican, I was like, how can you be a Republican? They're anti-gay, they're and you're like, well, I'm not. I don't agree on those issues. But we are so far from that part. We are so far from that America where we're talking about Colin and Greg Live today, where there can be compromise, where there can be discussion, where I can be Republican, Tim can be a Democrat, and we can come across the aisle and actually get legislation done. Because everything's fucked, and everything's been fucked forever. Nothing is going to be unfucked by this election. And that's the problem, and that's what it comes down to with this, right, is the fact that I'm voting for Hillary Clinton. I'm, of course, as everyone knows, not super briefed on the Benghazi, on this. I mean, I know I've read a headline, I've read an article here and there. I don't understand how people can hate her as much as they hate Donald Trump, but that's fine. It's beside the point. I'm not voting for her because she's the change I believe in. I felt for that with Obama. Obama was the guy when he came through and was talking about hope, and he was young and hopeful, and I was like, here we go. It's our generation's JFK. This is going to be the guy who gets back in there and brings us back together in some fucking way, and it didn't happen. And I don't put it all on him. I put it all on politics as usual. I put it all on everybody else coming in and wanting to gridlock the system and not let anything get done because nobody wants to compromise. And we are to a point where all we do is scream at each other when it comes to political shit, whether it be, and that's the whole thing with the pundits, whether it's MSNBC or Fox News or whoever, it's all the fucking same now, where everybody just talks, and none of it's worth a goddamn cent. And that's the thing here, where the problem, back to the point, I'm sorry to get so far down on this thing, is the fact that I have empathy for these people. I feel fucking sorry for them. I understand that things have gone wrong, but you are being duped. And I think that's where the hyperbole comes out, where people start trying to say that if you follow this man, you are X. Of course not. Of course, that's some of those people are for sure. I can give you examples of those people that have done that or that I've seen or have talked to that are that. Not everyone is, but you say that trying to get to the last bastion of these people's humanity and intelligence to realize that no, you're being fucking played.
Yep. First of all, kudos to you. That was a fantastic, and I mean that with all due respect. You know.
That'd be great if it was total sarcasm.
No, I've never heard you get so political, and I think you hit on a lot of salient points, and a lot of important points. To me, I don't necessarily disagree with you that the people are being duped, that there are people being duped out there, and that Trump is a snake oil salesman. I think that's obvious, right? That was obvious to me very early on. I'm actually really kind of proud of myself that I bailed before he even won the primary, because I was like, and I voted for John Kasich even after he dropped out, because I'm like, he's the only reasonable person that represents some brand of republicanism the way I grew up with it. And we grew up as New York Republicans, a little bit more moderate and a little more liberal than the most Republicans. I get that. But we had Rudy Giuliani comes from New York City. He's a fucking Republican. George Pataki was our governor in New York. He's a Republican. But you wouldn't even Mitt Romney. These people are not really recognizable as Republicans anymore. And so I agree with you there. But I just don't like walking around acting like, watching one group of people think that they have the high ground on this other group of people when they do not understand them, and their vote counts just as much as another person's vote, and their opinions really do carry as much water and as much weight to me as another person's opinion, even if they're a blue collar. Because what it really comes down to a lot for me, and this is just being fucking honest, and this is putting it all on the table, is that there's a lot of fucking bigotry on the coast about people that live in the middle of the country, that might live in a trailer, that might live in a small home, that might work in a fucking coal mine. Where the hell does your food come from? Where does your fuel come from? Where do your natural resources come from? They sure as hell don't come from fucking San Francisco, And that's the thing where I feel like people need to like wake up to the fact that like we all need each other. And we have to figure out a new way to talk about each other and to understand these people. And that's where, a lot of people have been circulating to me. And I know we're going along here, but I want to end on this. I mean, I don't personally care, but because I know people get upset. There was a Cracked article by this guy named David Wong. I don't usually read Cracked, but a lot of people were linking me to this article, and so I finally read it. It's called "How Half of America Lost Its Fucking Mind." And it's a really, really, really great piece, and I've cut out a few excerpts of it that I wanted to read, but I also really encourage people to go read it. And on their own view counter, it's got almost like 4 million views or something.
I even read it.
Yeah, and this really gave me a lot of perspective and almost put tears in my eyes when I was reading it, in a sense, because, well, I'll read it. And so here's what it says. And the guy, David Wong, from his perspective, grew up in one of these Trump communities. And he he's like a screenwriter or something now. He got out or whatever. He says, as a kid, visiting Chicago was like Katniss visiting the Capitol, or like Zoe visiting the city of the future in this ridiculous book. I don't know what he's talking about. Their ways are strange, and the whole goddamn world revolves around them. Every TV show is about LA or New York, maybe with some Chicago or Baltimore thrown in. When they did make a show about us, we were jokes, either wide-eyed, naive fluffballs like Parks and Recreation, and before that, Newhart. I love Newhart. Or filthy, murderous mutants, True Detective, and before that, Deliverance. You could feel the arrogance from hundreds of miles away. Nothing that happens outside of this city matters, they say at their cocktail parties, blissfully unaware of where their food is grown. Hey, remember when Hurricane Katrina hit New Orleans? Kind of weird that a big hurricane hundreds of miles across managed to snipe one specific city and avoid anything else. To watch the news or the multiple movies and TV shows about it, you'd barely hear about how the storm utterly steamrolled rural Mississippi, killing 238 people and doing an astounding $125 billion in damage. But who cares about those people, right? What's newsworthy about a bunch of toothless hillbillies crying over a flattened trailer? New Orleans is culturally important. It matters. To those ignored, suffering people, Donald Trump is a brick chucked through the window of the elites. Are you assholes listening now? That was one section he wrote. And the second one says, they're getting the shit kicked out of them. I know, I was there. Step out of the side of the city and the suicide rates among young people fucking doubles. The recession pounded rural communities, but all the recovery went to the cities. The rate of new businesses opening in rural areas has utterly collapsed. See, rural jobs used to be based around one big local business, a factory, a coal mine, etc. When it dies, the town dies. Where I grew up, it was an oil refinery closing that did us in. I was raised in the hollowed out shell of what the town had once been. The roof of our high school leaked when it rained. Cities can make up for the loss of manufacturing jobs with service jobs. Small towns cannot. That model doesn't work below a certain population density. If you don't live in one of these small towns, you can't understand the hopelessness. The vast majority of people's possible careers involve moving to the city, and around every city is a now 100-foot wall called cost of living. Let's say you're a smart kid making $8 an hour at Walgreens and aspire to greater things. Fine, get ready to move yourself and your new baby into a 700 square foot apartment for $1,200 a month, and to then pay double what you're paying now for utilities, groceries, and babysitters. Unless, of course, you're planning to move to one of those neighborhoods. And those in quotes. In a city, you can plausibly aspire to start a band or become an actor or get a medical degree. You can actually have dreams. In a small town, there may be no venues for performing arts aside from country music bars and churches. There may be only 2 doctors in town. Aspiring to that job means waiting for one of them to retire or die. You open the classifieds and all the job listings will be for fast food or convenience stores. The downtown is just the corpses of mom and pop shops left shattered in Walmart's blast crater. The suburbs are trailer parks. There are parts of these towns that look post-apocalyptic. I'm telling you, the hopelessness eats you alive. And if you dare complain, some liberal elite will pull out their iPad and type up a rant about your racist white privilege. Already someone has replied to this with a comment saying, you should try living in a ghetto as a minority. Exactly. To them, it seems like the plight of poor minorities is only used as a club to bat away bat away white cries for help. Meanwhile, the rate of rural white suicides and overdoses skyrockets. Shit, at least politicians act like they care about the inner cities. And then the final thing he said, and these are fragments. It really does feel like the worst of both worlds. All the ravages of poverty, but none of the sympathy. Quote, blacks burn police cars and those liberal elites say it's not their fault because they're poor. My son gets jailed and fired over a baggie of meth, and those same elites make jokes about his missing teeth, end quote. You're everyone's punching bag, one of society's last remaining safe comedy targets. They take it hard. These are people who come from a long line of folks who took pride in looking after themselves. Where I'm from, you weren't a real man unless you could repair a car, patch a roof, hunt your own meat, and defend your home from an intruder. It was a source of shame to be dependent on anyone, especially the government. You mowed your own lawn and fixed your own pipes when they leaked. You hauled your own firewood in your own pickup truck. The rural folk with the Trump signs in their yards say their way of life is dying, and you smirk and say what they really mean is that blacks and gays are finally getting equal rights and they hate it. But I'm telling you, they say their way of life is dying because their way of life is dying. It's not their imagination. No movie about the future portrays it as being full of traditional families, hunters, and coal mines. Well, except for the Hunger Games, and now is depicted as an apocalypse. So yes, they vote for the guy promising to put things back the way they were, the guy who'd be a wake-up call to the Blue Islands. They voted for the brick through the window. It was a vote of desperation. And that piece really almost made me cry when I was reading it. And it's uncracked, and he makes jokes in there and every once in a while. But if you even read the comments, a lot of people are like, yeah, I don't know what the fuck that's like. You know? What do I know? I come from Long Island. I grew up in a house with a 2-car garage. You know? Like, these people wouldn't have never even swam in an in-ground pool that was in my backyard. You know? And all I'm trying to say is, are there bad people amongst them? Yes, you can find plenty of videos of people spouting terrible shit about Muslim people or black people or whatever at these rallies. But I'm telling you, most of those people that go through those doors are just people like you and me trying to get by, you know? And they have everything working against them. And so all I ask people out there to say is, like, show a little bit of fucking empathy for these people, you know? Especially after the election. There's no reason to gloat and there's no reason to fucking parade around because you're just going to make it fucking worse. And if that kind of shit happens, Donald Trump will be back. And I'm not saying someone like Donald Trump will be back. I'm saying Donald Trump will be back. And if things do not go right by 2020, he will win. And he'll come back in 2018 and be like, I fucking told you, exactly what was going to happen, and he'll win. So we have to heal these divides in this country that go far beyond race or sex and all these things, these terrible things. And Donald Trump, I'm not saying Donald Trump's a good man. I'm not saying Donald Trump is saying anything that's right. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I understand where these people are coming from a lot more than I did a year ago. And I have a lot of fucking empathy for them and I feel bad for them. And we can sit around and say like, oh, us college educated people, you guys are being duped, but that's their fucking reality. And
I just don't, I agree, like every single thing in that article, I understand and makes sense to me. What I don't understand is what's Donald Trump saying to them. Like
Donald Trump says to them, Donald Trump comes in and says like, the EPA is going to crush your coal mine. I'll keep it open. And everyone in that town's like, great. Now I don't have to be fucked anymore. Or he goes into a manufacturing town and says like, Carrier Air Conditioner left Indianapolis and fired 3,000 people. We're going to start charging them with tariffs so that they don't leave anymore. And then you don't have to be fucked anymore. Those 3,000 people that lost their jobs, let's say all of them have nuclear families of 3 other people. That's 12,000 people that are being affected by this. So not only the people that work at Carrier are going to be with him, now their wives are going to be with him, now their aunt is going to be with him, their grandma, their mom. I really feel like because of an inherently racist, or I'm sorry, not racist, an inherently biased media that is completely in the tank for Clinton. I've never seen anything like it. Totally, the WikiLeaks shit's coming out, all this shit's coming out, all they want to talk about is Donald Trump. Right? They'll do anything. The 3 versus 1 thing where you said that was fair, that's not fair. They didn't challenge anything Clinton said. They didn't ask anything about.
She answered questions. He didn't answer questions. They were challenging him answering the question.
Yeah,
they were moderating, asking questions. She'd answer. He wouldn't answer.
Yeah, but he would just say
emails.
But she was
I'm going to arrest you.
She was saying things that weren't true too, though. I mean, PolitiFact played that out, and they could have easily gone after her. I'm not saying
a question about, but she answered them, whether or not it was true or not. She answered it. He didn't answer the things. The thing about there's a difference here to me where it's like nobody is voting for Clinton because she might have killed someone or whatever, and because of the Benghazi and because of all this. There are people voting for Donald Trump because he's a bigot and racist. Sure. That's disturbing.
Sure, there absolutely are. I'm just saying that you can't paint with a broad brush this entire group of people that are fucking desperate. That's all I'm trying to say. Like, they're just desperate, and so, like I said, there are some racists and some bigots and all those kinds of things. That's going to happen in a more conservative, frankly, society where they don't want societal change. They don't want gay marriage. They don't want. I understand that. I'm not defending it. All I'm saying is that we have to people in general have to stop giving these people the finger. Bring them along with us. This is what I always said about gay marriage. When I've been a long time supporter of gay marriage, long before anyone in the Republican Party was for it. And what's so ironic about someone like Donald Trump is he stood at the I couldn't even believe this, where he stood at the convention talking about how he wants gay and lesbian rights, how he wants all these things, and I was like, what? Like, you have to be the guy that fucking says this first, not someone that can win, so.
Well, don't count him out yet. He very well might.
So to me, it's just like, I want to just speak out there to all those people. I'm not defending anything that he said. My own record is clear. Like, I spoke with my feet by walking away from a party that I once worshipped growing up, that I once really believed in. And it doesn't exist anymore. And I recognize and acknowledge that. And I want to be part of rebuilding the GOP or rebuilding a new party that speaks for people like me. So I'm not saying that Donald Trump's the answer. And I'm not saying Donald Trump's going to fix these guys. He walks in, he doesn't know the first thing about getting the EPA off those coal mines. That's not what's important. What he's saying is that he's going to do it. And since what you were saying was that it doesn't matter if she's telling the truth, well, it certainly doesn't matter if he is either. These people are hearing what they want to hear. And when they go to a rally to hear the man say, the car manufacturers are not going to invert anymore, or whatever's going on, invert their businesses and go to another country to save money or whatever, they just want a job. They just want a career. They don't want a bureaucrat in Washington saying, we'll give you, hey, 55-year-old man that worked at a car company for 30 years, we're gonna train you to do something else. The guy's like, I'm 55. I just want a secure job so I can retire like I was promised, 30 years ago. He's not out to hurt a gay person. He's not out to hurt a black person. He doesn't even care. I really feel like the normal person that's voting for them, and I just want to show empathy for those people.
I hear you.
It's not even sympathy; it's just empathy.
Well, it's sympathy for me, and it's feeling sorry for them again. And I think what you're saying is they just want this. And for me, a lot of times, and what this is coming down to with Trump supporters that aren't in the I'm crazy racist whatever camp, is that they just want the easy answer. And none of this has easy answers. And my example of this is like we're talking now about something I do know incredibly well when living in Missouri, in the liberal town of Columbia, Missouri, then going out to Hallsville, going out to Mexico, Missouri, going out to Boonville and covering for the newspaper, whether it was the Columbia Tribune, whether it was the Columbia Missourian, and living in that community for 5.5 years and knowing what it's like to go to Hallsville and have that be a town that fucking revolves around the basketball team and Friday night football, or going to Hermantown and it's all about the wineries and all these different things, right? Like I'll never forget being in downtown Boonville where they were having a rally to try to stop the Walmart from moving in or whatever, the new Walmart they wanted to put out there or whatever. And I'm doing my job as a reporter. I'm being objective. This is taking this person, the rally side, getting the Walmart side, putting it all together for my article. But the fact of how terrified these people were about this coming in and taking out the small town business. Now, granted, it's hard to give you structure. Boonville, it's been a while. We'll say 30 minutes outside of downtown Columbia, not far. And in Columbia, there's now, I think, 5 Walmarts, maybe 4 supercenters. I don't know. It all runs together because I don't live there anymore. But at the time, Boonville, not far from a Walmart, to put a Walmart down there. But the terror in the main street, and they're already being closed up shops, and then being there saying, like, this is going to be so bad for local businesses, da-da-da-da-da. The problem is that it's what we always talk about, and I'm being very reductive here, obviously. These are huge problems, but it's what we talk about with video games, a vote with your wallet. The reason Boonville's Main Street collapses is the fact that the community stops going to Main Street. They go to Walmart. If everybody who's at this rally is like, I'm not going to go to Walmart because it's easier and it's cheaper and it's this, I will go to Hank's toolbox down here and get whatever the hammer I need that keep Hank in business. But when they give up the ground and they go and they have that one moment where they're like, oh, I'm already here and I'm buying something else, I might as well get the hammer here and not go to Hank's. That's when everything starts collapsing upon itself. I feel like it's the same thing. Now I'm stupid, as everyone knows. I'm not throwing that out there. I don't have a business degree. I don't have a community management degree or some shit like that, where I can tell you how the people who are getting laid off from Carrier are able to do that. I would say don't buy Carrier products anymore. Start a revolution and a campaign and do all these different things to try to stop that. But it's when you look to somebody, one person, to be the solution to that. When Trump would clearly come in and I doubt would keep the coal mine open or have the power to, probably through a million other things. But then on top of that, the fact of like how as a businessman whose ties are made in China and all this other, he's clearly just fucking lying. In the why I understand he sounds like the easy answer, but the solution here is that there are no easy answers. And it's the same thing with the divide we're talking about. You know what I mean? Even what you're saying of bring those people along with us, get them. I think that's when people are saying, he's a racist. How can you follow this guy and not be a racist? They're not trying to say they're the racists. They're trying to wake somebody up to get on their side and do it. It's not the best way, obviously. It needs to get closer and closer, and the ads get worse and worse, and the fervor gets worse and worse, and the debates are going to get worse and worse. That gets to this really, crazy tipping point. But then it is going to be the thing that you're talking about is like, if there's a fucking God, Donald Trump loses, right? And then it's going to be that he's still going to be spouting all this hate and trying to rally those troops. And it's going to be what does that. What I hope happens is what you're saying is like, yeah, his people are disenfranchised. And let's say even Trump wins, Clinton's people are disenfranchised. I'm hoping that when we get 4 years from now, we do have a candidate who is what we're talking about, who is, let's bring this together. This is the good and that's bad. And I realize I should think both are good, but they're not. You know what I mean? Like, hopefully this is the wake-up call, and if it is that Trump loses, I hope his disenfranchised base can find somebody who is giving real answers and real solution and real, ideas.
Yeah. I feel like, I felt like with Bernie Sanders, who brought out a lot of vitriol on me because I thought he was just so off base. I felt like a lot of the things that he spoke to with people were very similar to what Trump says in the same vein. It's just that those people were from Massachusetts. Those people were from California. Those people were from Oregon. Those people weren't from necessarily Iowa. I'm not saying that they didn't exist there.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is like they were coastal elites talking to other coastal elites, and it's like a whole thing where it's like those kids were desperate too. But the difference is like I didn't go around walking around calling them Bolsheviks. Like I didn't walk around calling them, Stalin. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the difference. I think Bernie Sanders is fucking wrong. And I think the people that like followed him really were like had a similar hopelessness about similar college debt or about how they're going to afford their health care and all those kinds of things. But I still had deep in me sympathy. I even had sympathy for me when
But
we
you
went
call
to
him like socialist, right? Which I mean, like, I know some of his policies are socialism.
He is
or
a
whatever.
socialist.
But I mean, like, but then you're throwing that on the people who are supporting him and aren't socialists.
Sure.
Isn't that the same idea of them getting rallied up and then they're just taking that as bile?
yeah.
Not to the level of you're a fucking racist and you're a bigot and da da da.
Yeah, but I mean, socialist isn't necessarily pejorative, you know? And we have pieces of socialism in the United States. I mean, anyone can deny that. What I used to make fun of was when everyone was calling everything socialism when Bernie Sanders was running. I'm like, I'm sorry, the military is not socialist. The Romans weren't really socialists, I hate to tell you. So, you know, I feel like, yeah, I've been guilty of it too in my own way, but never to the degree that I see, never ever to the degree that I see people talk about Trump supporters. And all I'm saying is these are human beings that mean just as much as you and I, you know, that have the same dreams and aspirations. At the end of the day, everyone just wants a security. They want a job. They want a family that they can take care of and support. And so all I ask out there, it's the same thing where it's like the vitriol goes too far sometimes. It's fun to play games. And you know, I talk plenty of shit about the candidate, Bernie Sanders. And I've talked plenty of shit about Donald Trump, the candidate. And I've talked plenty of shit about Hillary Clinton, the candidate. But I didn't trivialize tens of millions of people by reducing them to a fascist movement in Nazi Germany, for instance. You know what I mean? Everyone's saying like, I'm like, yeah, I see shades of fascism in what Trump does. I don't see shades of fascism in the Republican Party. You know, I don't see shades of fascism in many of the supporters that don't even know what that means, right? This isn't the Weimar Republic, and Trump isn't Hitler. So like, we have to kind of ground those kinds of things and just learn a new way to talk to each other. And I want to put the foot forward with that as well. I can learn from that. I'm not trying to say I'm above reproach either. But I've certainly not thrown around the level of vitriol I've seen thrown around at Trump supporters, calling them fucking stupid and ignorant and rednecks and all these kinds of things. Hey, dude, like, you know, that's not cool. You know what I mean? Like, that's just like, at some point, like, you wouldn't want to be where they are. And that was the point of the Cracked article. Is like, if you were where they are, you'd be voting for Donald Trump too. You know, and that's the only thing that I wanted to say. So I appreciate you guys, you know, humoring me. We'll return to this maybe around the election and talk about it one more time, but just to see, you know, but you know, that was one of the major things that I walked away from recently. It's just like, and maybe it's just a lesson to be learned is we're supposed to be like the same country.
Yeah, that went out the window a long time ago, though. It'll be interesting to see if we can ever get back to that.
So anyway, thank you all out there.
I
I hope it resonates with some of you.
I say it all the time, and I don't mean it as a joke. 9/11 was the last time we were unified on anything.